Welcome back to the Norse Benchwarmers podcast. I am your host, Colton Smith, reporting here from the holy lands of the corn, as you can see by the beautiful snow reflection coming through my window. I'm here joined by producer Josh Northcutt and director Garrett Jordan. It's been a while, fellas. It's been a while.
Only like a month, right?
3 weeks to be exact,
Okay.
but
A
we
little bit
did
less
have that Christmas episode. We had a Guess Who episode made, and it's gotten to the point where I had like it halfway finished, and then I had my computer go in for a part to be placed on there, and ended up getting the computer got wiped. So now all my progress is lost. So we'll see at some random point. I'm sure I'll get the motivation to and put it out there.
I
But
just wanted to see how you're going to make that entertaining and kill the dead time. That was the
I
main
killed
thing.
the dead time. It was like a 50-minute video, and I cut it down to like 28, I think. And but anyways, that's not what this show is about. But before we get into some of the sports stuff, I want to ask you guys, how was your holidays?
You want to go first, Garrett?
Sure. I mean, mine was pretty good. No complaints here. Wrapped up the semester and just got to chillax at my house for a few days, watch some college football. Life was nice. Made it through the holidays. Sometimes those can be sketchy for some folks that have extended family coming in and visiting. So, luckily for us, we're far enough away where none of those people can come get us. So, we just celebrated Christmas in our little nucleus. But it was nice. My mom baked cinnamon rolls. We made gumbo, steaks. It was awesome. Ate a lot. Good times. Definitely gonna have to get back in the gym.
We were literally just
Huh?
talking about that.
Yeah, I know.
before.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but no, mine wasn't too bad either. Didn't really do much, just a little family time and whatnot. Works or called a few NKU women's basketball games to get my hands dirty in that and see how that's going to work out. And kind of relaxed. It was a nice little break before my last semester, which I can't believe I'm saying. I graduate in May. Not that I'm starting a countdown, but it's less than 5 months officially today.
Bill's been counting down for 2 years.
Really?
Bill's been counting down since he
Yeah.
was that elder.
This is true.
What
But
about you, Colton?
for me, yes, me. Thank you for asking. I had a really good Christmas. I, spent time with family, which is always the best. And this is really about the longest period I could say I've been around home since high school. So it's been nice. There's been some work I've had to do around the farm, but that's just a part of it. And it's weird not having to go back to school next week. It still hasn't hit me yet, but it sure as hell will on Monday. So I'm curious what that'll feel like.
I'll say when we're all waking up to go to class and you're like,
I'll send you a snap from the classroom so you can show. I can show you what you're missing.
Oh no, that's okay. You don't have to.
Nah, we
Uh,
got you. We will send this now.
I'd be more surprised if Garrett sent me a snap. I know you use that app. But anyways, let's talk about some NKU sports. I'm still repping the Norse, and we'll start with women's basketball, who's coming off a 68 to 60. Is that a Norse shirt?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, it is. Okay, all right. I see.
I didn't
I
get the
see.
memo. Thanks, guys.
No, you didn't.
Yeah,
You
of course
were
we're on a
rival,
UC
so-
hat. So yeah, I decided to. Oh, yeah,
Born
I'm not
and raised
wearing
Cincinnati.
NK
Shut up,
Norse
Garrett.
bench warmers.
Shut up,
Um,
Warren.
But anyways,
The brand
women's
image.
basketball got their first conference win of the Jeff Hans era. It was the Maya Meredith show. She had 20 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 blocks. It's kind of been a long path for Meredith. She transferred to NKU last season from Western Kentucky. She won Conference USA Freshman of the Year back in 21-22 and led the team in scoring her sophomore year. She missed all of last year with the ACL injury. She's been on a minutes restriction for most of the season. That wasn't the case last night, as she had 35, or not last night, the other night, as she had 35 minutes in that game. But she's a senior, but she still has a chance to get that 5th year of eligibility. And I think that is scary for the Horizon League if she sticks around on that. But I'd be remiss not to mention Hallie, who had 16 points along with 3 steals to go with 4 boards on the night. Also, JC Jones is a hell of a point guard, 11 points and 7 assists in that game. But Josh, I know you've been kind of following them a little bit recently. So what have you seen from them?
Improvement. It was finally good to see them get a win that they deserved. They've come so close in multiple games where I want to say it's either 5 or 6 games that have been decided by 5 points or less. They were like 0-5, 0-6. They haven't been able to get that last few shots to fall, specifically versus Oakland. that game was
Yeah.
theirs, and they kind of just
Yep.
unfortunately collapsed. And Skarimsky did amazingly for Oakland, but this obviously isn't about Oakland. But a big help also that you didn't mention was Macy Blevins being back
Of
and the
course.
leadership. She kind of had a quiet game,
Hmm.
but to have her back on the floor, just kind of facilitating and leading the team is very, very huge for what is going to go forward for NKU in Horizon League play.
No, no. To expand on that Macy Blevins point of her coming back, I think it's cool that we can kind of see the team grow in the sense that Macy Blevins has been out. She comes back. She doesn't have the best game of her career, but her teammates pick up the slack for her, right? I mean, Maya Meredith's dropping what 26 is what I saw 20
20
points.
and 6 rebounds. Yeah.
Yeah, 20.6 rebounds. But I mean, you see it's a team effort, right? The team's picking up the slack when she isn't able to go 100%, right? So that's the sign of a team that's growing and is taking the next step and moving in the right direction, in my opinion.
And this is a team that's still missing two, I think, to be key pieces in Kaylee Davis and Allison Basil. And I think if those two can come back later on in the season, if they can get some wins string together, they can absolutely still make some noise in March. And that's the motto around here is 3 days in March. So I'm excited to see
Especially,
what I'm excited to see what they can do. And looking ahead, they have Robert Morris tonight at 6 p.m. Are you both working that game?
Yeah, I'm doing
okay.
color commentating.
Yeah, I'll
I'll
be
be going in a
watching,
few
but
hours.
yeah, I'll be watching, but I will not be working. But they also have IU Indy on Saturday at 3:30,
I'm gonna
which
say that's what
is
I was gonna
going to
say. They
be
got two winnable games coming up. That I mean, you can build on three in a row. That's called a streak, my friend, and you never know what
it
happens from
is
there. But
absolutely.
not to look too far ahead. I do have that Purdue Fort Wayne game circled. I don't know if you watched what they did to Oakland over the weekend after Oakland got a nice win at home versus I want to say versus Green Bay. Uh, Purdue Fort Wayne put a beat down on Oakland and kind of looks like maybe the team to beat in Horizon League.
Okay, that'll be interesting to see how they stack up against them. Let's talk about men's basketball because I mean it was a rough start for the men's, but they have won 7 of their last 8 games. They're coming off a 78-60 victory versus Green Bay. Josh Dilling led the way that game with 24 points, 6 threes on the night. But also Trey Robinson has to be talked about. He has been blazing hot from three. He had 3 bombs against Green Bay with 17 points and then also knocked down a career high 5 threes, along with 26 points the game before versus Purdue Fort Wayne. And on the season, he has 16.1 points per game, 6.3 rebounds, and 1.4 steals, shooting 40% from three. I personally think his name should absolutely be in the ring of Horizon League Player of the Year, and which is kind of crazy because I would never would have seen that a year ago. If you asked me a year ago, I would not have foreseen that. I mean, he had Marquez Warwick and Sam Benson in front of him, but he's kind of
Mhm.
blossomed into the star of this team and really kind of the difference maker. But that's the thing, he doesn't have to drop 26 just for them to win. Josh Dilling, Sam Benson, even at times Randall Pettis, all can step up. Keena Tijere and fit the bill. It's not always pretty with this team, but they find ways to win, and that's really all that matters.
Mhm.
Yeah, during this win streak, I know you obviously mentioned Sam Vincent. I think the big thing is he hasn't had that really huge game outside versus Norfolk. So when he starts hitting his shots and they start falling, this team is going to be very hard to beat in Horizon League play. And I saw our buddy Austin Elmore make a comment about, I guess NKU is going to be the only team dancing again come March because it doesn't look good in the other local teams in the
Yeah.
program around here. Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. Called that 0-3 start. Anyways, I do want to make a point on Sam Vincent. Yes, he hasn't had that explosion in points, but in his last game, he had 10 points, 7 assists, 5 rebounds, and 2 steals. He's also averaging 11.8 points on the year, 5.3 rebounds, and 4.8 assists. I feel like he's just a very Swiss Army knife type of player, and you will always need one of those players on your team if you want to make a run in March and whatnot. And I think of Lance Jones. He kind of reminds me of Lance Jones. And that's a Purdue comparison for those of you that don't know. He's just makes those winning plays, and that's what NK needs. And I'm very excited to see what the future holds. They got a big game coming up too. They got a big game against Youngstown State, going up against former or still NKU legend Ethan Faulkner, who's having quite the opening season for the Penguins. They just dropped their first game against Purdue Fort Wayne, which NKU did beat. So it's going to be a nice, even matchup. But those Penguins are going to look to bounce back, and it's going to be pretty big. And then after that, you got Great Camp and Oakland on Sunday or Saturday.
Yeah, Oakland hasn't looked as great as what they normally do, but I definitely have that Youngstown State game going tonight. Obviously, this game will probably happen after you get this out, but I mean, it's technically kind of for first place in the Horizon League on the road. I'm sure that I know Youngstown State, maybe their students aren't back, so it won't be like a quote unquote hostile environment. But when you're playing guys that you know, it thrives a little bit. So it's going to be fun to follow that game as well while calling the women's basketball game tonight.
Yep, it'll be very interesting, but we're going to go ahead and move along to our winners circle. I will go ahead and start. I got to bring up some more college basketball. Number 8, Florida defeating, not only defeating, but blowing the doors off of number 1 Tennessee, 73-43. That is the first win at home against a number 1 ever for Florida. They were 0-5 before that. The third largest margin of victory over a number 1 team in Division I history. Tennessee, we still own you. I've waited so long to say that, by the way. It's been
you
far
got a
too
fun
long.
one?
Yes, I do actually. I am going to go ahead and go with my man Mike Evans down in Tampa. Yes, sir. I'm sure we all know where this is going. Had a rough hamstring injury midway through the season, so he wasn't able to play as many games this year, and he's coming into his final game against the Saints. Needs like 80, like high 80s yards wise. 89 yards to get to 1,000 yards on the season, which if he did would give him $3 million as a bonus on his contract as part of a contracting incentive, and would extend his record of 1,000-yard receiving seasons to 11 and tie him with Jerry Rice. Yes.
The GOAT.
And on the very last play of the game, after Tampa Bay forced a turnover on downs, they call one play. Mike Evans gets 8 or 9 yards on that play and gets him to 1,003 on the season. They kneel it out from there. I don't even think they nailed it out. They just let the clock run out. Just one play to get Mike Evans $3 million and tie him with the record. I mean, he's probably going to break it next year. Let's be honest.
I mean, the dude is unbelievable. We talked about it, I believe, when you said that.
I think he is highly undervalued.
Yeah, when you were naming wide receivers better than my winner circle, I'm going to give my winner circle to the Triple Crown King, the man that apparently is not as good as Debo Samuel and DK Metcalf, Jamar Chase. Garrett, how horrible did that take age? You know what? I'll answer that for you.
You want to know You want to know the best part about all this? It's fluid. The list is fluid.
Yeah, that's why you
channel my boy SAS right there.
But yeah, no, absolutely. What a season by the man who bet on himself. The Bengals and obviously him couldn't get down a contract deal. And now this offseason, Jamar gets to go to the table and go, I'm the best wide receiver in the NFL.
And
I won $40 million a year. What?
I said,
when you look back, it is going to, depending how these final numbers fall, it is going to be one of those where we're totaling up how many more million he gets from the rumor that Rapine talked about earlier in the season, where they were rumored only $3 million off, and it was just $3 million at the beginning of the contract, which the Bengals don't like doing on the front load of the contract. So but congrats to Jamar, and just to go back to your Mike Evans take very quickly. Not only that, but that Buccaneers team was able to bounce back and get into the playoffs, and I think a lot of it has to do with the heart and soul Mike Evans. Watching those players celebrate with him, they wanted that for him so bad.
Yeah,
it was really cool to see. The most underrated wide receiver of our generation by far.
Probably.
Yeah. No, I wholeheartedly agree with that statement right there. It's very nice to see that and see the Bucs. I love seeing the Bucs succeed with Baker Mayfield, because I just always think of Cleveland.
Oh man! And they get to draft another quarterback.
Oh boy! But anyways, we're going to talk about a little college football before we get into.
What's the definition of insanity?
Repeating over and over again and not learning your lesson. I think you just look up and you see the Cleveland franchise.
Yeah.
It's a picture of the helmet right there in the Webster's.
Or is it the elf? Or is it the dog? Which logo is it?
All right, so let's talk about some college football, though. I guess I'm the one keeping the show intact here.
That's a first.
That
I
is a
like that.
first.
Yeah.
Guess because we're not talking about basketball. Anyways, we have number 5. Well, actually, I don't know where I was going there, but we're going to talk about the college football playoff, kind of recap what we missed over our winter break, and then kind of preview what this Final Four looks like. And we'll give, at the end of our show, 2-minute warning. We'll go ahead and give our champion pick. So I'm just going to run down here this bracket I got pulled up on ESPN. Number 5, Texas defeated number 12, Clemson, 38-24. I believe we all had Clemson on that one, if I remember correctly. It seemed like at least a majority of us had Clemson in that game. Clemson had a kind of decent start to that game, but wasn't able to finish it out. Ohio State defeated Tennessee 42-17, proving what I said. Tennessee had no business in the playoff. Penn State defeats the crap out of SMU 38-10. We'll get to this game, and I really want to make an argument that SMU still deserved to be here. There was just one thing holding them back. Notre Dame, number 7, defeated number 10, Indiana, 27-17. If you would have told me at the beginning if you told me after this game this would be the closest game of the first round, I would have told you were crazy. But here we are.
Also, not to jump too far behind or talk about something too far in the past, because I know we're quickly recapping it. But you did see IU's quarterback was out there with like a torn ACL.
It was a torn ACL.
Yeah,
It was a torn ACL.
let me confirm it, but it was either
Did he
something to do with an
sustain that?
ACL or MCL.
They
He was
sustained that
literally
during
out
the
there
game.
playing on it for like the last month, and they didn't let him know. He just had knee surgery. Let me confirm, and I'll get back to y'all. Go ahead.
Okay, please do. Then moving on to the quarterfinal round, number 5 Texas moved along, and should have lost to Arizona State, but defeated them 39-31. Ohio State rattled the doors off of Oregon. 41-21 does not do this justice. I was listening to a college basketball podcast this morning, and they were debating whether Ohio State Oregon basketball who plays later this week would be less or more than that gap in that game. And I think it'll be closer. I think it'll be closer. Number 6 Penn State defeating Boise State 31-14.
Sorry, Colton.
Number 7 Notre Dame defeating number 2 Georgia 23-10. And that leaves us with a Final Four of number 5 Texas versus number 8 Ohio State and number 6 Penn State going up against number 7 Notre Dame. Now that bottom game, Notre Dame and Penn State, that kicks off tomorrow at 7:30, and then the Texas and Ohio State game that kicks off Friday at 7:30 as well. Fellas, I guess we start with Clemson, Texas.
I don't think we gotta go that.
Yeah, okay.
We can just
Well,
recap the first round games really quickly.
Yeah, I was like Texas was just miles ahead of Clemson.
Yeah. By the way, Indiana quarterback Curtis Rourke played the entire 2024 season with a torn ACL, according to agent Casey Muir of the Octagon told ESPN on Friday. So the entire year he played with a torn ACL.
Is that why he was so slow?
That would explain why he did not have much rushing yards.
He didn't run at all.
Yeah, which now is going to change with Mendoza. Man, I'm telling you, that IU team. Sorry, Colton.
Yeah, that was a big transfer they got.
Yeah.
So Ohio State, Tennessee. Ohio State was far better than Tennessee. It's just like Tennessee. I get why they were in the playoff, considering the criteria for it. They won what they needed to win. They lost a stupid game, but I just never saw it with that team.
No.
And Ohio State just coming off a Michigan loss. That's what you're going to get. And then Penn State, SMU. This is where I want to make an argument. If you just have an average quarterback in that game, that is a much closer game than what you see there. And Kevin Jennings is a great quarterback when he wants to be, but I don't know what happened. Moment too big. I don't know. The defense showed up. The wide receivers showed up. The O-line showed up. Everybody showed up but Jennings. And that is really what accumulated to this game for me.
I mean, I think that's what you just said. This dude, as far as I know, hadn't really played a road game like that. Like, first off, that's Penn State. That's a top 5 atmosphere in all college football. And some would argue number 1. And he was I believe, true freshman, Garrett, or redshirt freshman?
Sophomore.
Oh, sophomore. Okay. So still very young. Wasn't even supposed to be the starter at the beginning of the year. So he has less than a whole season as a starter. I think you said it best. It was just a little bit too big for him, and Penn State did what they've kind of been doing the entire playoffs. Man, this Penn State team. I think Garrett owes Mr. Franklin an apology, but I guess he needs to win at least one more game before that happens.
I gotta see one more game from Franklin, but I agree with Colton where I do think this SMU team deserved to be in the playoffs. I just think they got a bad day from their quarterback. I mean, that happened. It's unfortunate that it happens in the biggest game where it couldn't happen, but it happened. He's still a redshirt sophomore. Like Josh said, he just hasn't really played in those really, really big moments yet. He still plays for what many would consider to be like a more, like when you're talking about upper echelon of college football programs, like a mid tier program in SMU. So SMU was not expected to win the ACC and even be anywhere near the playoffs this year. So the fact that they even got there is an impressive achievement in and of itself. So Kevin Jennings having a bad game is like, yes, that sucks, but I think Preston Stone is now transferring away from SMU, so Kevin Jennings is going to be your quarterback for the next 2 years. That's incredible news if you're an SMU fan. You got to the playoffs this year when you weren't expected to. You had a dud in the playoffs because of one bad game from your quarterback, and you still have him for 2 more years after he put up 11 incredible games. That's all I'm going to say.
And
No,
honestly,
you're
you're a
not
Texas
wrong.
Heisman when it comes to recruiting.
Now
Uh,
you are.
no, I know
Yeah.
SMU isn't like Texas or Texas A&M or blah blah blah, but you don't have to be that when you're recruiting against the ACC. No offense.
Right.
So I mean, I could see SMU being the team to beat for the years of future, pending how the portal works and everything else. Because I'm sure Jennings is getting money offers left and right. But moving on, the one game I had to talk about was Texas Arizona State. Man, I thought ASU was going to do it. We watched the game together, guys, and it's just they had that game and they just kind of came up short. Dillingham blamed himself. I still kind of question punting the ball away towards the end of the game and trusting your defense when I wouldn't have took the ball out of your offense's hands. But always easy to second guess, but to go to double overtime with that Texas team, very impressive. Arizona State is here to stay. They just locked up Dillingham, I want to say on a 5 or 6 year extension. Apparently, Levitt, that is the quarterback's name, right?
Yeah.
Sam Levitt
Sam.
has told Oregon that he is not interested in returning home and he wants to stay at ASU and be a quarterback. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it is just it is very good for the Sun Devils and their future of the Big 12 to continue to build from that because I mean the Big 12 is going to be winnable and it's going to put you in the playoffs, which is going to get you the notoriety. And Kenny is just man,
Yep.
that dude is so I would play for that guy.
I'm telling you, Kenny's an energizer. He's one of those guys that just gets his players hyped up, and not many coaches nowadays can do that. I feel like Marcus Freeman is another one of those guys where he really is able to connect with his players. So I would put them sort of in that same category. Obviously, Dillingham is not quite where Marcus Freeman is yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if he starts to get up there. But yeah, I mean, this was a game that absolutely Arizona State could have won. They were sort of playing from behind almost the whole game, but they were staying in it each time. Texas would pull away, and Arizona State would, hey, we're still here, kind of thing. And I just like you said, Josh, the fourth or the punting towards the end of the game, there, keeping the ball in your offense's hands. That's definitely going to be viewed critically as far as decision making. I'm fine with you punting there because I think your defense had been playing well up to that point, and I would put my faith in my defense. What I really want to highlight, though, and this is what me and my dad talked about, is more so than punting. When you're up, first overtime, and you have 4th and 13 on Texas, this is for the ball game, and you call a zero blitz on 4th and 13. I mean, just rush two and drop 9 guys in coverage. They don't have to score a touchdown on that play. They just have to get 13 yards. Just put 8 guys at the sticks, man. I don't understand the play call there, and I personally think that's the reason that they lost that game because the tight end or wide receiver in the slot, whoever it was, just ran right up the seam route and split those two high safeties. So it was just way too easy.
Yeah, I would be inclined to agree. And the point you made about Arizona coming from behind, I feel like that was kind of the issue with a lot of the underdogs. I look at Indiana versus Notre Dame. They kind of started to figure out, and of course Notre Dame probably started laying off the throttle a little bit, but they towards the end of that game, they found some success on offense. Same thing with Boise State. I mean, 31-14 was the final score, but there was still a little hope holding on because that offense started figuring things out. So it feels like
I'm
a lot of these underdog teams, they just can't hit them in the nose. And that's what you got to do when you're an underdog. You
I'm
got to be the one up 14-0, not the other way around. You cannot be
Yep.
working from behind. Speaking of far behind, Oregon was very far behind Ohio State pretty much from the get go.
I think
I don't even.
Jeremiah Smith just scored another touchdown as we were talking.
Yeah, no kidding, absolutely. So I don't even know what to say about this game. I'll let y'all take it away.
It's exactly what we all feared when we did the prediction show. Michigan woke up Ohio, and everyone is paying for it.
yeah.
That's the best way to explain it. That attitude, that swagger, that is not the team Michigan played
No,
in Columbus
absolutely not.
a month and a half ago. That team is the team that everybody expected to see in the beginning of the year and was picking to win it all. That's $22 million worth of talent. And that being said, though, I know I specifically hampered the $22 million of Ohio State. Not to mention, Oregon paid $27 million for their team. They had the highest NIL funding, and Ohio State just played better. Beating a team twice in the same year is not easy. So that was my take on that. Jeremiah Smith is a dog. That dude would be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft this year. He's 18 years old. Michigan's going to have to deal with that kid for the next 2 years, which I'm not looking forward to. Unless he just wants to take the Jamar Chase route and sit out his junior year and just go concentrate on the NFL. I'd be fine with
And maybe get drafted by the Bengals. No, I'm just
that.
kidding.
Yeah,
Um,
we'll be picking 32nd. Sorry.
No.
yeah. Oh,
Um,
yeah, yeah. Very true.
I loved the point you brought up, Colton, about playing from behind because I think we've all kind of started to notice this theme with all the playoff games that have been played already, and it's scoring early and scoring quickly. I mean, most of these games, if you go back and look at the box scores, the team that won, they're up like 14-0, 21-7, 21-0 by the first quarter or like a couple minutes into the second quarter. These teams are scoring early and they're scoring fast. So I would say if you are a team that is in the semifinals, I think you look at that and say, okay, the trend has been to score fast, so we need to score fast. And that's all these teams that you see losing, trying to take their time and play like a time game, and that's not what happened. Where it's just you got these guys on these other teams that made these explosive plays and scored quickly. So that's what you need to prioritize if you're moving forward is scoring quickly, scoring early, putting the pressure on the other team.
Mhm. Yeah,
And then
exactly. But we are getting down to the nitty gritty here on college football in terms of time. So if you
yeah, I
want to
just wanted to
quickly,
quickly just mention one thing though. We'd be wrong not to mention Notre Dame beating Georgia.
yeah,
Um,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely impressive win by Marcus Freeman and then the boys from Notre Dame. Georgia just came out flat. I don't know if it's because of backup quarterback or if it's more just Notre Dame was more prepared. But uh, Garrett, I'll ask you very quickly: the 4 teams that had the layoff of 25 days, how big of a role do you think that played? Because I mean, does
I
playing the week before or 2 weeks before help? Or
I absolutely think I'm a firm believer in rest is good, but too much rest is not good. Because you want to be playing like you look at a team like Arizona State, right? Where they finished the season really, really hot. I mean, they finished the season like on fire. They were playing incredible, and then they played into that first round bye, and then they had, like you said, that 25 days to just sit and watch and wait. And while they did play well. They played Texas really well. Coming out in that first half, I didn't really see that same kind of fire that they had played with at the end of the season because they had had so much time in between and that momentum that they had built up kind of cooled off. So yes, I do agree with you in the sense that I don't think it is good to have these players resting 3+ weeks because I just think it's almost like simulates a miniature end of the season, so to speak, where it's like
so
your
all
body's like,
said,
okay, we're done, we got to shut down now.
All four of the bye teams lost.
Yep.
correct.
Yeah.
That just now made. I don't know if you said that, but I just made that realization.
Yeah, no, that's because that's been the big avid talk is it too long of a layoff? Do
Mm-hmm.
they need to go more closer to, let me make sure, it's the FCS, right? That is
FCS.
the FCS route of how they're doing things and whatnot. It in forward years, because they said nothing's changing next year. This is the layout until at least 2026, and then we might see some changes. But Colton is probably the only one here who played high athletic sport, obviously in high school. Would that long layoff affect you too? You think? Like, is it like Garrett said, your mental just kind of goes away from everything, and then you're like, oh, you got to get locked in for the biggest game of your career?
Well, I can tell. I have the perfect example because I played during the peak of COVID.
Yeah.
In that we started the season, played our first game, lost to our rival just barely, and then we had a really great week of practice. Win their game Saturday. We're literally about to get on the bus, and we get informed that somebody on the opposing team that we played the first game had COVID. And I thought, and we were going up against like one of the better teams in the region that
Mhm.
next game. And I truly thought we were going to go in there and win that game. And that just took the wind out of our sails, dude. We were out for about 2 weeks, finally get back. And yeah, it just like you have people that ended up getting COVID and they weren't able to play. And then, like, for me to practice, I had to go down out in the cold and just put up some shots. Like, you know, I did, but it still, it just was like, it just really ruins the momentum, and that's a different explanation, but that's probably the closest thing I could, you know, like compare my experience to what these guys kind of went through. So
It messes with your rhythm. I mean,
it does, it
sports
absolutely
sports
does.
is a sports is a season based sport. It runs from a start date to an end date, and so when you mess with that formula of playing games consistently, you're gonna get that, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, well, yeah. Think about a team that like starts in week 0 versus a team that starts in week 2. That's two completely different things.
Yep.
So, but
Mhm.
anyways, moving along, let's go ahead and wrap up this segment
Mhm.
here. Our final four: Texas, Ohio State, Penn State, Notre Dame. Let's start with the game that is tomorrow: Penn State versus Notre Dame. Who do you guys got?
I'm gonna stick with the same team I had in the beginning. I'm gonna take Notre Dame. I believe my
No
two
money
next.
inclination there.
I mean, no, I don't have an exacto bet on this situation. No, but no, it's just Notre Dame just looks different, man. This is not the Notre Dame team that we all think of Notre Dame being soft, this and that. Like they took that Riley Leonard attitude. They took that Marcus Freeman attitude where they're winning, running the ball and playing hard-nosed defense. Locking down Marcus Freeman, by the way, by Notre Dame. Great job, just in case that Ohio State job were to come open. It would cost way too much money to get him out of there now. But yeah, I like Notre Dame, and I kind of like them big. But don't sleep on Drew Aller. Man, he has looked very good in the playoffs. And he looks like a kid who might have said, I'm coming back to college football a little too soon. Because I could put that dude in the first round draft pick.
Yeah, yeah.
I think
I don't think another year would hurt.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I
Garrett.
I think that's a little jumping the gun, Josh, but I think he's played better. I don't think he's NFL ready yet. I would be more worried about Tyler Warren on that team if I were Notre Dame. I think that's the guy you've got to stop because he's him, and then the running backs. Was it Singleton?
Middleton and Allen.
Yes. So those Katron, yeah, Singleton and Katron Allen, both those guys are two very good running backs that Penn State likes to rotate to keep them fresh. Tyler Warren is always going to be that anywhere, anytime threat for that Notre Dame defense. But I do have to agree with you. I think this is the game that James Franklin will lose, and it will reinforce my point of James Franklin can't win the big games against the big teams. And he, he won against
Garrett doesn't count SMU or Boise State as big games or big teams, even though they're in the playoff.
he won against SMU and Boise State, which in the mind of Penn State athletics and their fans are not quality wins because that's not the teams they want Penn State to beat.
That's
I don't
it.
know. I still think you see that Final Four or playoff four, whatever you want to call it. Like I think you see that on the resume, and that gives you another couple years.
Sure, the athletics department sees that and go, "Ooh, shiny," but people that actually watch college football go, "This
Okay,
man
but
cannot win
my
a
point
game."
is they don't make the decisions upon James Franklin
I'm just saying,
staying there.
I'm just saying, if I'm a Penn State fan, I'm not happy if James Franklin is coming back. That's just my.
That's insane. That's insane.
But
But
I
anywho,
think Notre Dame will win this game.
yeah, I also have Notre
Neutral
Dame.
field,
So we all have Notre Dame here, so that means Penn State will probably find a way to win it. But my one point I was going to make is that Penn State often to start things off has been slow against Boise State, especially. I feel like not until like that second quarter they really started to get some separation there. And with SMU, it wasn't until like their third pick from Jennings that they really got separation there either. So I think this is a team that I could see getting that slow start like other schools have throughout the playoff and Notre Dame potentially run away. But Notre Dame's offense isn't necessarily one that runs away from you. They just do enough to kind of get the job done. But
I
maybe
think
they'll prove me wrong.
Oh, it is going to be a low-scoring game. I'll tell
Oh
you
yeah.
right
yeah,
now. It's not
yeah,
going to be like the other game that we're about to talk about.
yeah.
I think the key will be, can Notre Dame's offensive line slow down Abdul Carter and that Penn State
Very
pass
true.
rush.
Very true. But let's talk about the other game though. Texas and Ohio State. I'll go ahead and give mine. I'm just going with Ohio State at this point. I'm trying to do the reverse jinx. So Ohio State to the championship, and yeah,
Garrett?
Yeah, Ohio State is a team on a mission right now. Like we've said previously, they don't look like the same Ohio State that we saw in the regular season. These guys are fired up and playing with an intensity that I have not seen yet. So I'm gonna go with Ohio State, and it'll be Ohio State Notre Dame in the championship.
Again, no money involvement on this prediction or anything like
yeah,
that.
okay,
But I'm going to take the team that I predicted. Like I said, I thought that Michigan game was going to be the wake up call, and it's what it was. Ohio State was kind of coasting through that Oregon, the Michigan segment. They lacked whatever it is they have now, and they also then remembered who their best player is, and that's Jeremiah Smith.
Yep.
Get him the football, let him make plays. That being said, though, Texas secondary is very good, one of the best, if not the best, in college football. So that matchup should be very fun to watch. Quinn Ewers, though, I don't buy it. I don't buy him as a national championship quarterback. So I'll take the team who has spent the more money and has the better talent. Give me Ohio, and let me just get rolling the money.
yeah. So we'll save that championship pick for the 2 minute warning. Garrett, I'm going to ask you to keep that quiz question for next week, as we're going to go ahead and move into NFL since we went about almost 7 minutes over on college football.
Always.
Yeah, shocker, very shocker, and I'm sure we'll go over on this NFL. So enjoy your hour and 15 minute episode of the Norse Benchwarmers to come back. I'm just going to go ahead and put that out there right now. It's been a while, guys. All right, we're not quite as well oiled, but let's go ahead and talk about this NFL playoffs. We don't have much to talk about Week 18 except for the fact that Bengals aren't in it, and pretty much everything else stayed. Like there was nobody that was outside the playoffs going into that week that ended up in the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, everything kind of just stayed chalky when I'm looking at everything. The only thing that I can think of was the Chargers stealing the 5 seed that everybody
Yes.
wanted, getting the easier matchup versus the Texans without
Yeah.
their star wide receivers. And then Detroit handling business versus Minnesota at home. Boy, oh boy, did Detroit have a wake-up call when it comes to that. But that was
Detroit or
really the only
Minnesota?
Week 18 standouts. Yeah.
Detroit or Minnesota had a wake up call.
Detroit had
Both,
to.
both in their own.
Detroit woke up because
Yeah.
didn't they lose
Oh,
like the week
okay.
before
Like
that?
they woke up and Minnesota got a wake up call. Okay,
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
just try to piece it together. My
My
headset
bad,
just
my bad.
unplugged, but I can you guys can still hear me. Yeah, so I think Detroit, even despite all those injuries, absolutely still look like they could make it to that championship. But that'll be the reason they lose to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, probably. I don't know, but we'll see when we make our playoff predictions. Let's go ahead and just throw it to Josh. Or Josh, do you want to throw it to somebody else? Let's get this Bengals memoriam out of the way. Or do we want to talk about Mayo first?
No, we can talk about obviously the Bengals situation first. Guys, they did exactly what I told you they were going to do.
They did.
They won
Sure
out,
did.
and they still missed the playoffs.
Yep.
So we don't get a top 10 pick. Now I will say the last 5 weeks were fun. This chase was fun. Do I wish they would have had the ball in their own hands to make a decision and not have to rely on the practice squad Kansas City Chiefs? Yeah, absolutely. I wish they had that opportunity, but they have nobody to blame but themselves. This is something that is going to haunt me from the day it ended on Sunday until that time we see them on the field. Is that you cannot start 1-3 in the beginning of the year. You can't go, I believe it was 1-6 or 1-7 in one-score games. You have to find ways to win the close games, and you have to start hot. If they start 0-2, or if crap, I'll say it now. They start 0-1. They lose that first game. If it's at home, I'll tell you right now, you will hear about a fan jumping from the top. Well, Colton, you know where my seats are. I will
Uh,
jumping from the
I
top. As Zach
vividly
Taylor walks
remember.
off the field, you just can't have it anymore. You can't. You got to send a message. You got to have things done. I kind of had a checklist of what I want to see the Bengals do this offseason, and 2 out of 3 ain't bad when it comes to the start. I love Lou. I appreciate everything Lou did, but truth of the matter fact is Lou lived off that playoff run. Besides that, did you know the Bengals defense was only 16th? That was their highest ranked defense under Lou Anarumo. I'm gonna mess up his name, so I'll just call him the mad scientist. But under Lou, 16th was the best. They were an average defense the entire
And
time he was
that
there.
was the Super Bowl year?
Yeah, and then besides that, it was the playoff run, and he lived off of it. And don't get me wrong, he lived off beating the Chiefs, and he did. Actually, I wouldn't say he did great versus the AFC North. I feel like Lamar has cooked him the last few times playing, but it was time to move on. So, and I'm okay with that, and I'm interested to see.
I think the thing about those defenses were with the Super Bowl, with the Chiefs run, I feel like those defenses were heavily built off of players rather than an overall good defense. Like players making plays. Jesse Bates, Jermaine Pratt, Sam Hubbard. Those guys made plays in their prime. And when you get rid of Jesse Bates, Awuzie, Mike Hilton, he's still there, but I'm just like naming
The
some guys
the
that are
the
there.
the, Je- the Jesse Bates thing is literally like it's laughable throughout the league. Jesse Bates is the best safety in the NFL. And
Absolutely.
we let him walk for a third round comp pick, who I don't think is even on the team anymore.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sure not.
that was embarrassing.
Yeah, it's embarrassing because I made the point that if we had Jesse Bates this year, we win like one or two more games.
Yeah.
I mean,
Probably.
just simply having him on out there, stopping some deep passes that we haven't been able to stop.
I'll tell you right now, he ain't drawing a pass interference call versus the Chiefs.
No, yeah, hell no, yeah, absolutely, yeah. We don't have our six
He's
string
picking that, he's
or
picking that
string.
ball off.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but that being said, you know what? We can stew on it for a little bit. I'm going to give us all, literally, I'm going to give all Bengals fans, we're allowed to be upset and we're allowed to be complaining about it till the season ends. But today, that Super Bowl trophy is handed to whoever it is handed to. Hopefully, anybody but Patrick freaking Mahomes. That day, we move on and we start looking forward. We hopefully hit some home runs in the free agency. Colton, I know you don't buy it, but they do have money to spend if they do the right thing. They could have the fourth most money.
That's what I don't buy is that doing the right thing.
Correct. But I mean, they could have $100 million to spend. Jamar's $21 million is already put aside with that. So it's $100 million to go ahead and get T. They need to lock up Trey also, by the
Yeah.
way, guys. He's down to his last year of his contract. I'm going to throw
Mhm.
that out there. That was one that I didn't add to my little checklist. But you got to improve the guard play. Literally the two worst guards in all of the NFL. If you watch Cordell Volson get ran through by Casey Hayward
Oh,
and
that
then
play.
500 plus 5 pounds falls on your franchise's neck, yeah, no, that can never happen again.
Yeah.
And they've made a statement though. They fired their D line coach who hasn't been able to get talent out of Miles Murphy, hasn't been able to get Joseph Asai back to what he wanted. Uh,
Fired up.
Outside Trey, really, that's all he freaking did. Chris Jenkins had an okay year. Willie Jackson had an okay year. And then they fired the linebackers, who the linebackers just kind of look slow. That's what they look like to me this year. They all took a step back. Pratt's one of those guys who needs to go. Thanks, Playoff P, for everything. I'll forever remember the interception, but your time is up. It's somebody else's time now. And then um, firing Frank Pollock and the offensive line. That had to happen. Uh,
No, that had
if
to.
you, I don't know if you ever saw the interview with Mims, but when they were talking about Mims, he was talking about how his progression in the offseason and everything else was going through. Never once did he mention Pollock. He mentioned Trent Brown and Orlando Brown Jr. being helping him.
Yeah.
Not mentioning your coach is concerning to me. So I
Yeah.
think, and I mean, towards the end of the season, we saw him get into an argument over something. So that time was move up, and I'm just going to throw names out there right now. I would call up Antonio Pierce to be a linebackers coach if he is interested, especially if you do bring in the Raiders defensive coordinator that you interviewed. He obviously has the connection to Antonio Pierce. It also opens up a door to having Marvin Lewis around, which I know you guys are probably not a fan of, but I want to rekindle that relationship with Marvin. Marvin did a lot for this franchise, and the fact he didn't get any kind of recognition when the Raiders were in town still irks me a little bit. The man is probably the second best coach from Bengals football history, whether y'all want to admit it or not. And then offensive line, my first call would be to Willie Anderson, but he has mentioned many times he doesn't want to coach in the NFL, but you never know how that changes. Willie Anderson, the attitude, or crap, call up Andrew Whitworth. Maybe he wants to coach. I want somebody who I need some kind of new atmosphere. And then last but not least, as I know I'm going on one of my typical Bengals rants, uh, Malik talked about it in his podcast, but do not, and I repeat, do not hire Press Taylor in any affiliation with this freaking organization, especially the run game coordinator. If he hires his brother as the guy to take over the run plays, boys, I'm going to murder somebody. Moran is done. Moving on away from the Bengals. You guys can wrap up whatever you need to.
Yeah, I
Sorry, I
think
just
when
got a
you're
vision of what you just said.
I think if you're leaning on Marvin Lewis as your second best coach in history, you have a pretty bad history as an organization.
What we do. There's really
Um,
like an hour-long video about it, like how bad our organization is.
I'm gonna put out a hot take. I know I'm gonna get flamed for it, but I don't care. Do whatever you need to do to re-sign Trey Hendrickson.
It's not hot.
Let T Higgins walk. Take
I
that
disagree.
and invest.
I
You
don't
talk about
disagree.
Jesse Bates.
No,
You let him walk for a third, at least franchise him, and then try to trade him for a pick that's better than a third-round comp.
let T Higgins walk and take the money that you would have spent on his contract and invest it into your O line. T Higgins, I love T Higgins. T Higgins is an incredible football player. He does not play 17 games a season. He can't stay healthy a full
Doesn't play
season.
defense either.
I need guys that can play at least 14, 15 games a season. He's too fragile for me. I love him. He's a great receiver. Great receiver. He's going to make money somewhere. I just don't think it
He's
should be.
one of-
Garrett, I can't
Broke a
wait
lot of
to
stats.
when they re-sign him. I can't wait for you to make me a list, because this is what we need now. I need a list of number 2 wide receivers that are better than T Higgins. So then T Higgins can go out.
I can't make that list because he is the best two option, maybe outside of
Yeah.
Jordan Addison. But even then, I don't think Addison's at his level. It's just he's too fragile. He doesn't play enough games for me consistently.
I mean, if we had T to start the year, I mean, there's probably 2 more wins right there. I mean, I don't even disagree that we need T, but I think we need a defense more than we need T.
Here's
$100 million, guys. He can get
Okay, what's your point? That goes out the window when you pay T.
here's what I think.
24 of it, maybe.
Here's what I think. Joe Burrow can make somebody look very close to T Higgins. You cannot substitute guys on an offensive line. When an offensive line is bad, you can tell when an offensive line is bad. And number one priority for the Bengals should be to make sure Joe Burrow's jersey stays as clean as possible during the game, which is why you should take this money and invest it in O-line.
I think you can still do both. I think people are going to line up to want to play for Joe Burrow, but it all starts with making sure you bring T Higgins back, because also number 9 said he wants him back. And let's move on to talk.
I know number 9 said he wants him back.
Or actually, I guess we'll talk to Mayo's situation, and then also Antonio Pierce.
Yeah, we can just talk coach firings.
Oh yeah.
2 coaches getting fired after 1 year. That is the
That's
dumbest.
the
thing.
NFL now. That's the NFL now. Like
Yeah.
New England, they want to bring in Mike Vrabel.
Yeah.
Old buddy of what's their Kraft of Robert Kraft's,
Right,
I
yeah.
guess. So and then Antonio Pierce, I think it's kind of ridiculous. I mean, look at the hand he was dealt, and seeing what he did with that team last year, I thought that was a bad hand he was dealt last year, and he was able to turn that team around almost into a playoff team. So I think the Antonio Pierce is a little more ridiculous than Gerard Mayo.
Yes.
A lot of people didn't see Mayo as the guy there. So if you don't think he's the guy, why are you like still prolonging it? But I didn't see that necessarily. I didn't watch too many Patriots games though, so I can't really say I know too much about him. But yeah, what do you guys think?
I don't think you can fire a coach after 1 season.
I agree.
I don't agree with that. How can the man be the man for the job, and then not even 12 months later, not be the guy that you want to see go through? New England was in a clear rebuild. They were basically told when they came into this year they were going to be the worst team in the NFL. They were building for next year. They wanted a low pick. So honestly, that win on Sunday is probably what cost him his job. It's probably another Miami Dolphins situation where it was like, what do you mean you just won the game? It cost us probably Travis Hunter or even the option of trading the number 1 overall pick for even more picks.
Drake May and Travis. Oh
Yeah.
man, that would have been nice.
Yeah, but so that was my situation on that.
I don't
But
like
it's
Mike
clear
Vrabel
both
as the
coaches
head
were fired
coach out there,
because
by
both
the way.
organizations want Mike Vrabel. Brady wants to bring it because Brady's the one making the hire in the Raiders. He wants Vrabel. He wants a guy he can trust, a guy he knows.
Wasn't there somebody else he wanted though?
Everything I saw was Vrabel.
I saw
Everything I saw.
Vrabel, but I thought there was another coach like before Vrabel was even
Oh,
in the.
it's Prime, but Prime's not
Oh
coming
yeah,
to
it was
that
Prime.
Shador
Yeah,
unless they're going to trade something crazy to go get Shador. But yeah,
no.
no, there's that. And then New England is the most obvious. It is Mike Vrabel, which is why this rule of having to interview other people is the stupidest rule in the NFL, but that's something for someone else to speak on and not me because I can't speak for a person of color who is being overlooked. But New England wants Vrabel. So their 2 interviews yesterday, what are they getting out of it? Like Byron Leftwich and Pep Hamilton aren't getting the job. That is Mike Vrabel's job. Everyone knows it. If Mike wants it, it's his job.
Right.
So that was that whole mindset. Garrett, you got any take on the 2 of them being fired before I mention the other jobs that are open?
Um, Not really. I agree. Antonio Pierce getting fired was wrong. I don't think he should have been fired necessarily. Sort of similar with Gerard Mayo, but I thought the video that Robert Kraft put out, sort of like pseudo apologizing for firing Gerard Mayo, was in very poor taste. Maybe in my opinion, but I
Robert
just
Kraft in poor taste. What?
yeah, I know. I watched the video and I was like, why even make this, dude? Just like put out a statement or something. You don't have to go up there and act
Well,
like you're pained to be letting Gerard Mayo
he
go.
also put
Really,
out a
if you
statement.
want him there.
That's what's funny. He also typed up a letter and put out a statement and all that. So
Right.
that's
So why
that.
even do it, man?
Yeah. And then obviously the Bears, the
They,
Saints, the Jets jobs were all open, and then the Jaguars job just became open.
Doug.
Shocker.
There's some good talent there. There's like that New England job, that Jacksonville job. You get to play with some franchise type quarterbacks. If the Saints, I feel like the Saints are like that mid tier team that I don't know if I want that job. If I'm looking at all of them, I think this is my least favorite job.
They have been stuck in purgatory since Drew Brees left, and I
They
don't
no
foresee.
the issue with the Saints right now is that since Drew Brees left, they haven't found their quarterback.
Yeah, I mean they had the defense as
Hmm.
Josh disappears, but they had the defense and all of that. So it really was they've had Kamara, they had Thomas, they have Olave. It's just really a matter of getting that QB that can put them over the hump, and I don't foresee
Hey,
them getting that where they're at in the draft. Um, yeah,
yeah.
Purgatory is the perfect way to explain it too, because their salary cap is disgusting. Last I checked, they literally have the least amount of salary cap in all of the NFL.
they remind me of the Kimball Walker Hornets where they just sat in
Yeah.
like the 9 to 10 seed for like 5 to 6 years, made the playoffs once, and that was about it. But enough about basketball. I say let's get into this playoff bracket here,
Yes.
boys. Right now, I want to go ahead and just list off the bracket as it looks, and we'll just go through in order of what the schedule is. So in the AFC, the number 1 seed is the team in Kansas City. We also have the number 2 seed Buffalo Bills going up against the number 7 seed Denver Broncos. The Baltimore Ravens are in the 3rd seed going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Good old AFC North battle for the 3rd time this year. Houston Texans in the 4th seed, and the 5 seed is the Los Angeles Chargers. Very interesting matchup there. Just what Josh wanted to see for his second favorite team. Or is that your second, or is it Jacksonville? Have you switched? I'm assuming you switched by now.
Jacksonville's my second, but it is my
Okay, so
favorite coach.
you're sticking with Jacksonville. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Um, Number one in the NFC is the Detroit Lions, and they are going to face. Well, actually, I forget that they had the higher seed, so I'll just go ahead and name them. The Philadelphia Eagles are the number 2 seed going up against the 7 seeded Green Bay Packers. I didn't realize they fell to the 7 seed. I mean, they have a great record. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers sit at the 3 seed going up against the Washington Commanders, which is a team I feel like I really heard a lot about to start the year, but second half of the year, they've just kind of been there for me. The Los Angeles Rams have the 4 seed, winning the NFC West, going up against the Minnesota Vikings at the 5 seed. That's a tough draw for the Rams, but at the same time, just looking at it in a vacuum of like in past history, Vikings love to choke in the playoffs. The Rams like to upset teams in the playoffs. I don't necessarily hate this matchup. Sorry, I didn't mean to bring back memories, Garrett. I
Yeah.
didn't consider that to be an upset, but yeah. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. Let's go ahead and start with the first game on the docket. Probably a game Josh most wants to talk about: the Chargers at the Texans at 4:30 p.m. on CBS. Josh, I'll just let you take it away, buddy.
I mean, let's be honest. I can just sum it up like this. I'll make my prediction already, by the way.
Yeah,
CJ
yeah, we
Stroud
might
can't
do.
beat Harbaugh. Give me the Chargers.
All right, I guess Garrett's not going to talk, so I'll
Yeah,
go ahead.
I can't help.
I'll just go ahead and talk. I also have the Chargers. Similar reason, just Harbaugh has a little number on CJ Stroud, but CJ Stroud has also just been awful this year, and this just feels like a team that's dead in water and riding off what was a pretty decent start. So go ahead and give me the Chargers. First year Harbaugh winning in the first round.
No, this is for me. It's C.J. Stroud definitely having a bit of a sophomore slump. I hope next year those numbers will be able to tick up and we'll be able to see
I agree.
more rookie season Stroud because I think he's going to be great for the Texans if he can get back to that level and beyond. Um, Another thing, the Texans kind of limped into this postseason. They didn't like wow anybody. They didn't have any impressive wins or anything like that. They had a couple bad losses coming into the postseason, so that's number two. And number three, losing Tank Dell right at the end of the season. I mean, he was one of Stroud's number one targets. So I mean, having a guy like that go down, a guy that he likes to launch the deep ball to, who's gonna replace him? I mean, you got Nico Collins. I guess John Mechie is there. I guess he might be the fill-in guy. But I the Chargers look like the more complete team to me. This is gonna sound crazy, but the Chargers also just picked up Zeke off the waivers, and I feel like if anybody could reinvigorate a running back's career, it'd be Jim Harbaugh. So
We'll use them.
I think the Chargers are probably gonna win this game pretty handily.
I mean, think about it.
Don't ever say Harbaugh's biased, by the way. That means he has two suck eyes in his backfield. I'm just throwing that out there. JK and Zeke. Hey, we don't care as long as we're winning games
I did
in
not
the
think about
Harbaugh world.
that. But yeah, no, I lost what point I was going to make. But we all got the Chargers, or the Los Angeles Clippers, as I like to call them. Then the second game of that Saturday, the Steelers at the Ravens. Oh, the point I was going to make: the Texans O line sucks. The Chargers D line does not suck. So CJ
Isn't
Stroud, prayers up, my guy.
isn't Laramie Tunsil like the most flagged O lineman in the league this year?
He's also the highest paid.
Yeah, funny how that works.
Not a good combo.
So back to the next game. We'll see how that all plays out. Steelers at the Ravens. Good old AFC North showdown in Baltimore, 8 p.m. on Amazon Prime. I didn't realize they got a game. Oh God, I just saw Peacock. No, no, it's on NBC too, but it just gave me PTSD. Anyways, Steelers Ravens. To be honest, I don't know what way this is going to go. I feel like, actually, I do know what way it's going to go. I'm going to take the Ravens here just based off the Steelers are the team that are just kind of sinking here at the end of the year. Lost their last four, if I'm not mistaken, and the Ravens just kind of turning it on at the right time. So haven't been like blistering good, but I still think they will show up for the playoffs and win this game against the Steelers.
You would be correct. They've lost their last four, last five of their seven. That second half schedule that everybody told them was going to be tough was exactly that. That being said, I was all Team Steelers all year long when it came to prediction time. However, I'm taking the better quarterback, I'm taking the better team, and I'm taking Baltimore not only to win, but win big at home.
Yep. I'm currently at an 80-20 split for me. 80% of me thinks that the Baltimore Ravens will win this game in convincing fashion and there will be absolutely no controversy whatsoever. And the other 20% of me, and Alex knows, and I know Alex is watching, the other 20% of me says that the Steelers will find a way to win this game because of Mike Tomlin black magic. Either that or they'll just have another first round postseason exit. It's going to be one of those two things. They're either going to get blown out or they're going to win a close game that they should not have won. That's I'm leaning Ravens, but don't be surprised if that happens.
That's true. That's true. And so far, the graphic is not being saved here, folks. We are across the board
No.
on both of our games, but I feel pretty confident in the Ravens winning this one. Great point about the better quarterback, and overall, I think the better team as well. But cannot sleep. Cannot sleep. Did they end up? Did the Steelers end up 9-8 again?
No, 10-7, I think.
10-7, same difference, you know. Once again, just sneaking above 500,
Yep.
even though I thought that was not the case. I won't doubt that again. My fault, folks. My fault. Moving on down to Sunday at 1 p.m. on CBS, we have the Buffalo Bills hosting the Denver Broncos. And what I think could pose an interesting threat to the Bills, but nah, I got the Bills rolling here and getting the win in Buffalo.
Buffalo big. I don't think it's even going to be close. I think the rookie, kind of like what we saw with the SMU Penn State game, is what we're going to see here. Knicks, it's going to be a little bit too big for him, especially that cold air, everything else. Yeah, give me Buffalo.
What,
Big.
is it not cold in Denver?
It is, but I mean, it's
They don't have what's called lake effect snow in Denver.
They have mountain effects now.
Um, I think this game is probably going to be one of the more interesting ones to watch, in my opinion, because I want to see how Josh Allen carves up the Denver defense.
That was my point. Yeah.
The defense in Denver has been really good this year. I mean, what are they, the number one team in sacks now? Through week eight?
Josh Allen's the MVP. If Joey can do it, why can't Allen?
That's what
all
no,
I'm
I want to see what happens and if Josh Allen is able to overcome that hurdle of the Denver D. I think he will be able to. It'll just be interesting to see.
Colton, you
Yeah.
like that take, huh? I saw your smirk. You know who else to have him at?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because a guy's not in the playoff deserves the MVP. Josh Allen, though, I could see a world where he reverts to that Josh Allen we see every random game against such a great defense. If he lets up a couple turnovers, I absolutely think this Broncos team can capitalize. That's why I think it will not be a blowout. And yeah, so go ahead and give me the Bills for that one, but do not sleep on the Broncos. We've got to have some disagreements here, right? Maybe this is the one. We have the Packers versus the Eagles. Two teams I thought might meet in the NFC Championship, but we have them meeting in the first round. The game's at Philadelphia, 4:30 p.m. on Fox. I'm gonna let you all start here because I've kind of lost base on the Packers a little bit recently, so I want to hear what you guys have to say.
To confirm, by the way, Jalen Hurts is officially back in practice today. He has cleared concussion protocol apparently, so he should be good to play on Sunday. Love, I believe, lost Watson, which is a big hit.
Yep.
So he'll be down to Reed and Wicks, I believe, as his wide receivers, because I think Dobbs is also banged up.
Is he?
So the Packers being down some wide receivers is hurting. However, I'm going to take the Packers.
Your typing intensifies.
I'm gonna take the Packers. I don't know what it is. I could be way wrong on this.
Okay.
This also could be me just trying to stick to my Super Bowl pick from the beginning of the year. So there's
Right.
that. But yeah, no, I'm gonna take Green Bay. A gut feel, but it would not surprise me if Philly just completely blows them out.
Yeah, it's weird because it really could go either way. There's a lot of questions around every team, but one thing that I can count on, well, never mind, I won't say it like that. But I think the Eagles are going to win this game. They have Saquon Barkley, who I think will absolutely be the difference in this game. We saw how it played out week one. We have that rematch here, and it is hard to beat a team twice. So I can't rule out the Packers here. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a great game, but give me the Eagles here. It just feels wrong having Saquon win me the fantasy championship and not, sorry, Garrett, um, and not pick him to win here in the first round. And this Eagles team is tough. This defense is very underrated on the Eagles, and I think they have gotten much better from that first game they played against the Packers week one.
Yeah, I think this one is definitely going to be more tightly contested than some of the others. I was just you heard me typing. Obviously, I was going to look at the IRs for both teams and see, because I think for me personally, I think this game is going to come down to how much production you get out of your skill positions, and I think Josh already talked about it. Romeo Dobbs is questionable. Christian Watson obviously out with that ACL injury. Um, Also for Philadelphia, you had AJ Brown and Devontae Smith both listed as questionable for this game coming in. So I think it'll be interesting to see who plays, which of these skill positions plays, and if they don't, who steps up into those vacancies left by those players that sit
Excuse me.
out. I think I think the Eagles win this, and I think it comes down to Saquon versus Josh Jacobs. I think this is absolutely not a slight on Josh Jacobs. I had him on my fantasy team. He started out slow, but he ended up being one of the best players on my team this year. I just think Saquon's that dude. I can't bet against Saquon, man.
Backwards hurdle, man. That's just every time I think of Saquon, that picture will always be in my mind.
Those Kelly
And I
Green unis.
cannot. Yeah, I think the Kelly Green uni is what makes that play so iconic. But
Mm-hmm.
just the fact that he backwards hurdled somebody too. But um,
And a big
yeah.
job.
Is that all we got on this game? There's a lot to talk about here, but
I think it'll be one of the more closely contested games.
yeah, I would wholeheartedly agree. But I think this next one's going to be a good one.
Oh yes.
I think this next one will be a very close
Oh
game.
yes.
You have two teams that I feel like are very inconsistent throughout the game. So we'll see runs from it's the Washington Commanders going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bucks at the Bucks, 8:15 p.m. on NBC and another streaming service that I will not be using. I it's one of those I think it go either way. It just depends upon what and who shows up. I'm going to go with the experience. Tampa Bay is not only a team that has been here in this position before, but a coaching staff that has been in this position before. And I think that will supersede the Commanders' offense and defense. I think there's still some holes. There's some holes on the Buccaneers as well, but I think they'll be able to patch those up for this game where the Commanders maybe will be exposed. So give me the Bucks, and I think that depending upon what Bucks team shows up, they could make a run in this playoff.
Colton, you said it best. Experience. Give me the Bucks.
I'm going the exact opposite of you too.
Okay.
I like the
I
experience.
wonder why. There's no no bias
Quarterback.
here.
Quarterback bias. Oh.
Not a single amount of bias in this pick.
No, the
whatsoever.
quarterback has no relation to Garrett and his favorite teams in any way, shape, or form. But Garrett, I'll let you talk.
No, sir. No. Bakes, I love you. Mike Evans, I love you. I love what you guys are doing down in Tampa, but the buck stops in round one, boys.
This is crazy. As Baker's dozen was your fantasy name.
Baker's dozen was my fantasy team. I love Baker, but Jaden Daniels is one of the most exciting rookies I think I've watched. I mean, my personal opinion, he draws comparisons to Lamar Jackson. I think he's just a slightly less or slightly undersized Lamar Jackson, where he's just super fun with the football. This is a Commanders team that last year were nowhere near the playoffs and are now getting into the playoffs basically on the back of their rookie quarterback, and I think that they have rallied around him. I think Marshawn Lattimore is going to win the fight between him and Evans this first round playoffs. Yeah, I think the Commanders are going to roll in here, and I think Jaden Daniels is going to take the world by storm and make a statement in round one.
To be fair, it is kind of the consistent theme with he's going to get some comparisons to C.J. Stroud in the sense of how well he's played in his first year, and C.J. Stroud won in the first round. But I think it's just a different scenario. I think this Bucs team is much better than maybe some give them credit for. It just depends on what team shows up. If the team that showed up last week shows up, then yeah, I think the Commanders win this game. But I mean, the Bucs also ended up winning that game, so we'll see. I think it's a toss-up, 50-50. It just depends upon which of these two teams show up. It's been different week in and week out.
I think like the Packers-Eagles, I think this is going to be another one of those closely contested first-round games.
I think this next one will be too. I think the NFC is a much more interesting kind of lineup here with the Vikings and the Rams. I've said this like 5 times in the last 2 minutes, but what Rams team shows up and what Vikings team shows up? The Vikings have been the more consistent team throughout the year, but the Rams had to be hot here at the end just to get into the playoffs. Had another slow start, but a great second half of the season. And I had this team as my dark horse pick for the championship. Now you guys both know who it is. I got the Rams winning this game. I think the Vikings. It's 50-50 for me. I think the Vikings, based on this season, should win this game, but the Rams, based on past history, based on experience, I think the Rams have the more experience here and give me That defense is tough too. I think they will give some fits to Justin Jefferson, to that of Sam Darnold, especially, and that's why I have Los Angeles winning this game.
Uh, I think a key thing not to overlook here is in Week 18, the Rams rested their starters while the Vikings were forced to play their starters because they were playing for the number one seed in the
And that
NFC.
circles back to our college football conversation.
Right. So again, I know how I said earlier I was staunchly against resting for too long. I don't think 1 week is long enough to sort of lose that fighting edge. I
Well,
think one
it's just
week
like a bye week,
exactly
an extra bye week.
one week like optically and mentally is like, oh, this is just like a bye week. I just have 1 weekend to chill and then we're back at it, kind
Yeah.
of thing. So I think LA being able to rest their starters in week 18 is going to be the reason why they win this game.
Yeah, I think I'm with Colton on this one. I've been saying this Rams team is very scary. They've got the experience on the offense to go with a very young defense. They have maybe the best offensive mind in the NFC when it comes to Sean McVay. So I actually love the Rams in this one, also to make a deep run. As producer, gentlemen, we've talked about this conversation for 33 minutes. So I say we're going to hold off on the predictions until the next round and we'll just stick with what we have here and go into the quickly 2-minute warning if that's okay with you, Mr. Hostman Colton.
Yeah, that's fine with me. Let's go ahead and go into our 2-minute warning, which is you. It's been a while, so I forgot that's you asking this question. So,
Yeah,
do we?
me.
What are we? What we want to? But all these are championship picks. So,
I'll make it
do
work.
we
I'll
want?
make it work. Don't worry.
So yeah, okay. We can still give our dark horses. Let's do our dark horses
That's
first.
fair. So, college football champion, first off, I'm obviously sticking with my guns, and it's going to be Ohio and Ryan Day winning the national championship over Notre Dame. Garrett?
Yeah, it's going to be Ohio State. They're playing like a team on fire right now.
I'm gonna say Ohio State because I don't want them to win. So if I pick them, hopefully they won't. But yeah, give me the Buckeyes. They're sucking.
Fair enough. We talked about the bad. There's 6 jobs opening. Again, just to remind you, Bears, Patriots, Jets, Jaguars, Saints, and Raiders. To you guys, which is the best head coach job open? Garrett.
I would say probably the Bears or the Jets. Jets only be I would not say Jets because of the history and also the ownership surrounding the Jets. I guess you could say the same thing with the Bears, but I think the Bears have a situation where you can build off of more, where you've got a rookie quarterback, you've got pieces around him, you just need to build him up a bit more.
Colton.
Yeah, I would agree with the Bears take on that one. You have a great quarterback in Caleb Williams. You have great wide receivers. You have a great defense when they are put in the right places, and so I think the Bears would probably be the best job. The only other argument probably isn't one.
New England for me, you got Drake. I
Yeah,
mean, you got $135 million, which is the most in the NFL to spend in the offseason.
that's
Give
fair.
me, give me the Patriots.
That's a great point.
Dark horse champion of the teams that we've talked about. For me, gentlemen, I'm going to just pick 2, and it's being kind of funny, but I'm going to take the Chargers and the Rams. I don't know what it is. Somehow, some way,
Everybody's
I'm
attracted
telling
to
you, one of
LA.
these teams in LA are going to make a magical Hollywood type run, and it's probably the one I'm already calling beforehand. So, Garrett?
Yeah, I can definitely see the Chargers pulling off some kind of miracle run like that. Maybe as far as any other like dark horse candidates, I'm looking at teams that aren't seeded 1 through 3. Minnesota might screw around and end up in the championship. Who the hell knows? I don't know.
Colton?
I mean, I'm just going to stick with my Rams pick here, but another one that I would make is honestly the Broncos. I don't think it will happen, but I think if I'm taking a shot in the dark and I look at this AFC, I think the most equipped team, not 1 through 3, is the Broncos. They have an outstanding defense. Their offense has looked a lot better in the second half of the year. So if that team shows up, I could see them beating the Bills. I could see them beating the Ravens, and I could absolutely see them beating the Chiefs. So will it happen? Probably not, but I think dark horse, give me the Broncos.
Fair enough. And then I lied. We are going to do the Super Bowl champion pick. So, Garrett, I'll let you hold off if you need to. My Super Bowl, by the way, the Chargers will beat the Chiefs. I'm going to tell you that right now. Baltimore will beat Buffalo, which will put a horrible AFC championship Chargers, Ravens. Guess what, boys? Chargers beat the Ravens. Harbaugh finally beats Big Brother and goes to the Super Bowl. Who does he play, though? We got Green Bay, Detroit. I'm going to go ahead and take Detroit, and then we got the Rams and Bucks. I like Matt Stafford and what's going on there. So then we get the magic of Detroit hosting Matt Stafford in the NFC Championship game. Boys, revenge time. Rams go. All LA Super Bowl. Rams, Chargers, baby. And it gets magical. Harbaugh wins the Super Bowl the year after winning the national championship, and you will never, ever hear the end of it again.
Well,
Can't hear the end of it now.
Thank you all for listening. Hope you all did enjoy. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at NorseBWPod. Also, check us out on Apple and
Colton, you don't have a
Spotify
Super Bowl prediction? You
podcasts. Thank you, Bill, Pharaoh, and NKU Media Services. I know we are out here in the sticks right now, but we'll be back in the studio by next week, assuming no more of that white stuff outside comes down. And yeah, thank you all for coming on. I was glad to do the show. And yeah, we'll do an NFL playoff. We got like 10 minutes after this. We can record a little NFL playoff show. So we'll do that. At least I assume we do. So we'll see you all in the next one. Peace.